Hi, welcome to Manas Shil YouTube channel. Before we start, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Let's start the video. If you haven't watched the previous video, I'll link it in the description box, or you can click here. Tensura Volume 19. Chapter 1. The First Battle. Thoughts on enemies. While Saoi and I were solving the mystery, Rain was finishing her explanation to Gi. It was both annoying and surprising, because it was really useful information. She told us where the enemy's base was, and about the forces that had been gathered. Although I was not sure how much of it could be trusted, she seemed to have gleaned quite a bit of useful information. Above all, the information she provided at the end was very important. Even I, who had just been listening to the conversation, turned to Rain. That's how I got the information out of him. Then, it seemed that the battle was over, and Pico said, "Oh, I was contacted by Feldway. He's leaving now, so I ended the girls' party. No, I ended the interrogation." Putting aside the fact that her true feelings were obvious, Rain's story was too important to ignore. It was Pico's reaction that was important. As a result of Michael's complete control, Leon had fallen to the enemy. Diablo's report also confirmed that Zalario had been taken over in the process. And yet, Pico and Gracia were not under control. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain why they had been enjoying the girls' party until the very end. This brought me to a conclusion. Michael's control might not be effective in isolation. This was very reliable information. Perhaps, whether it was through visibility or magic perception, the control was effective only when the object was recognized. In that case, if the control person left Michael's sphere of control, there was a high possibility that he would not be able to recognize whether the control had been established or not. If he periodically issued orders via telepathy net and checked whether the orders were carried out properly or not, he might not have such suspicions. However, if Leon was secretly released on the battlefield, where Michael was not present, it would be possible to decide the outcome of the battle before the enemy knew about it. I glanced at Guy, who was also looking at me. I think Rain's achievements are significant. When I said that, Guy nodded reluctantly. Yeah. She's a dumbass, and is useless during crucial times, but she also does things in ways I don't expect. I hate to admit it, but that's what she's done this time. I didn't like to admit it either, but there are just some people in this world who are good at what they do. Even when they look like they're fooling around, they still end up getting results. These were the so-called genius types, and recognizing the work of these people would always be a test of ability to those who were in charge. Taking away the achievements of others would be a problem, but otherwise, they should be evaluated properly. Rain was listening to our conversation, but her eyes were moistened, as if she realized that she was going to be saved. I could even feel her gratitude towards me. "That's Rimura-sama for you," I could practically hear the voice of her heart. No, she was talking about it out loud. After all, I knew that Rimura-sama would understand the real me. "Rimura-sama, if there is anything you need from me in the future, please let me know." Even as she was saying that with such a firm expression, the moment was ruined, because she was still sitting on the floor like that. That kind of thing was no good. I realized once again that Rain was a no-good child, even if that wasn't literally true. You'll make me angry if you keep acting like that. You should reflect on yourself more. I couldn't help but give her my sincere advice. However, I still had to admit that an achievement was an achievement. Rain's actions were not praiseworthy, but she did produce results. In that case, there was no need for further punishment. Sure, punishment or reward is what they say, so why don't we just let her go? That's true. I guess I'll let it go this time. I nodded to Guy. Thus, Rain's freedom was decided. After being released from her floor sitting, Rain was being congratulated by Miss Aura and the others. Mizary, who had brought tea, spoke to Rain in a dumbfounded tone. "I admit that you are a child capable of many things, but I wish you would change your usual attitude a little more." Rain was proud to hear that. Fufufu. "How about that, Miss Aura? Even Mizary praised me. A capable woman like me, even when I try to hide it, my abilities can't help but come out in full force." As I listened to this exchange, I thought to myself, this kid, she's no good. Guy seemed to agree. A child capable of many things is not a compliment, you know. He spat out gravely. Until recently, I had thought she was an excellent maid from the first few times I saw her, but she really must be a big deal to make Guy feel so troubled. While we were left feeling resigned, Rain and her subordinates were having a great time. "Well done, Rain-sama. Why does this Mizary girl always stir things up? This is why Rain is always getting carried away. I was getting a sense of deja vu, it was that. This was just like how Trainee-san was with Ramers. She must have grown up to be a no-good child, because she was always being spoiled like that. As for Rain, it seemed to be too late to correct her, even if we re-educated her from now on. So, at the very least, I decided to educate Ramers, so that she would not become like Rain. Well, we went off on an unexpected tangent, but the discussion itself went smoothly. And so, I will summarize what we learned about the enemy situation. Vega, who was supposed to be one of Yuki's friends, seems to have gained power, and become much more powerful. Ranga intervened just as Mizary and the others were in danger, and somehow managed to fight him off. However, Vega had eaten the enemy named Oria that Kumar defeated, and rapidly healed his injuries, and improved his fighting ability. The exact numbers were unknown, but if we compare only the existence values, he seems to be stronger than both Ranga and Kumar. He apparently had a vulgar character, flattering to the strong and intimidating to the weak. However, he also seemed to have excellent survival instincts, having survived to this point and acquiring great power, despite all odds. My impression of him was that he would be a very troublesome opponent. Incidentally, Oria had apparently been able to create mythical-grade equipment with her own skill. Unlike Valgrand, Oria seems to have only materialized her weapons, but they hadn't disappeared when she was beaten by Vega. This was a testimony of Fran and Kazona, the knight captains under Leon, and I also checked with Kumar, so I believed it to be correct. In other words, Vega must have inherited the weapon creation skill. This kind of problem was the type that became more dangerous if left unattended, so I thought that it would be better to deal with him as soon as possible. I, myself, am a similar type of person, so this was something I felt with a real sense of reality. The warrior whom Sae defeated by surprise was named Darius. Unfortunately, he had escaped before he could be finished off. It was a rare mistake for Sae, but it seemed to be unavoidable after hearing his story. After all, there was a user of instantaneous movement on the enemy side. Khan also testified to this. It was not magic, but a skill. The ability to jump through space without any preliminary movement was troublesome, because it was difficult to measure the strength numerically. If she had mastered this skill, we might be caught off guard. The fact that we had found out in advance that there was such a person on the enemy's side was a big gain. The girl's name was Mai Furuki, and it seems that we would have to rethink our strategy to take her skill into account. So far, those 4 people were the weakest of the enemies, but they still had given us a lot of trouble. Some of them, like Rain's drinking buddies Pico and Gracia, had been reluctant to follow, but it seems that Michael's ultimate dominion had turned them into our enemies. Well, I'm sure Seal-san would be able to something about it, but that would require a certain procedure. There was still the possibility that the control could be broken by one's own will, so we would have to carefully assess the enemy. And then there were the serious enemies. Velzard, Zelario, and Feldway. There was no other word to use for them but threatening. I had actually fought Feldway, so I understood how strong he was. He didn't seem like he was serious about it, so I really thought it would be best to leave it to Diablo. And so, I would postpone my talk about Feldway for later. By the way, Gi-san, is Velzard-san going to be okay? Bastard, you didn't even come to help. You're talking as if you're somebody else. No, that was more of a lover's quarrel, and I didn't think a third party was needed. Quit screwing around. You know what they say, not even a dog will bite into a lover's quarrel. If I say this out loud, he might get seriously angry, so I told him so in my mind. When I asked him what he really thought about everything, he replied as if he was fed up with it all. Well, you're not completely out of your mind. It feels like she's full of pent-up resentment, and her main goal is to harass me. It seems that Guy had been desperately trying not to let this country disappear. Normally, I'd create an alternate space and fight there, but even I can't control Velzard. It doesn't matter if she agrees to it, it's impossible for me to impose something of my own convenience onto her. Indeed, I didn't think that the barrier used at Walpurgis was going to be able to control Velzard. I'm sure there were more powerful techniques, but Guy seems to have decided that it was still too difficult. Well then, I guess Guy-san's role will be a tough one. Hey, wait. It's too much for us to handle, so for this, we let Guy-san show us what he's made of. Guy was about to say something, but I ignored him and went on with the conversation. My instincts told me that if I didn't, I would surely be caught in the middle of it all. It was worth it, because Guy seemed to be convinced, although he was glaring at me resentfully. I was relieved to see that, and switched my thoughts to the next enemy. So, Diablo. How did it go with Zelario? Kufufu, to be honest, Zelario is a strong opponent. If we compare on simple strength alone, he might even be better than Feldway. Seriously? Yes. Feldway will come to you if you encourage him, but Zelario is a cold-hearted warrior. Psychological warfare does not work on him. He's a very uninteresting opponent, but that is why we have to play to our strengths. Guy agreed with this. Yeah. Zelario's always been strong unlike Cornu and the others. He was quite useful in the fight against the world-destroying dragon Iverge. I see. So, he's a solid opponent who is hard to upset. No matter the world, I guess it's common knowledge that the strongest are those whose minds can remain undisturbed. If an opponent runs away as soon as they are about to lose a battle, they are not a threat, no matter how strong they are. On the other hand, an opponent who does not give up, no matter how difficult the situation is, troublesome, because you cannot let your guard down against them until the very end. In that sense, Cornu was the former, and Zelario was the latter. Especially in the case of Cornu, he had a good lieutenant whom Guy paid more attention to than Cornu. Now that Cornu and his team had been wiped out, there was no point in talking about them here. In any case, it's clear that Zelario was a threat. Then, Diablo started saying something interesting. However, right after Feldway appeared, his movements became monotonous. Something must have happened to him. Diablo was suspicious, and had kept a watchful eye on him. As a result, he concluded that it was not a trap, but some kind of anomaly. What was interesting was the fact that it was just after Feldway's move. What was Feldway's purpose in the first place? He didn't participate in Kigali and the others' battle, right? Yes, that's correct. As soon as I saw Feldway, I was put under Michael's control, but Feldway himself kept a watchful eye on me. Hearing this, Benamera and I looked at each other. If Feldway had entered the battle earlier, we would not have made it in time, and Kigali would have been killed. If that had happened, Sylvia-san would have been in danger. It was unnatural that he didn't make a move, and unless he had no intention of doing anything, there was no need to go to the place where Kigali and the others were fighting. So then, why did he need to move? There must have been a purpose, right? I suppose so. I mean, one possibility is that our speculation was correct. As soon as I thought of it, Guy nodded, looking convinced. I hated to admit it, but that was the only explanation I could think of. I suppose we should assume that Feldway can also use the ultimate dominion. It was Diablo who said this. Guy was not happy, as if Diablo had said it before he could. What do you mean? It was Sylvia-san who asked, but Kigali seemed to be thinking about it, as if she had something in mind. After pondering for a while, she opened her mouth. I don't expect for you to believe my opinion, but... Kigali seemed to understand that she was in a delicate position, and started the conversation in that way. However, Guy denied it outright. I believe you, Kazlam. So don't hold back. Guy seemed to have recognized Kigali as the ex-demon Lord Kazlam at first glance. And yet, he was ready to listen to her without a care in the world. In a way, this was the moment when I realized that Guy was a big deal. You're still as confident as ever, Guy. I'm not a demon lord anymore. So, I'll just be Kigali. With a small smile, Kigali began to speak her thoughts. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy it.